And welcome to another episode of Ardent Cinema, the #1 podcast for a book club style discussion of all things movies. This is a weekly podcast, and we encourage you to follow along as we take a deep dive into each movie's plot, overall themes, what we thought of the acting and directing, our feelings on the film, and more. At the end of each episode, we will announce the movie for next week, so make sure to listen until the end. I am your forceful host, Sean.
I am your Majeure host, Daniel.
Welcome to the show. Soy Alejandro de España, no hablo español. This week, we hope you watch along with us for Force Majeure 2014.
Where do you come from?
From Sweden.
Sweden,
Yes.
very good. I'll make you the beauty picture together. Come on. 1, 2, smile, good one.
Harry, det är lugnt,
Everyone is fine. I mean, they know what they're
you're right.
doing. And
He
they
got so
stop
scared that he
right
ran
there.
away from the table.
What?
Can we have some privacy?
What do you want? Ebba, cool.
You can find it on Amazon, Apple TV, and Blu-ray. Written and directed by Ruben Östlund. You may know him from his other works like The Square and Triangle of Sadness, which is currently in theaters. Starring Johannes Kuhnke as Thomas, Lisa Loven-Konzli as Ebba, Christopher Hivju as Mats, and Fanny Matelius as Fanny. Wow, would you look at that?
Wait, her name is Fanny in real life?
Yeah,
Wow,
and I got that first try.
nice job.
Thomas and Ebba are vacationing in the French Alps when they are confronted with a harrowing close call. A controlled avalanche comes rushing down the mountain only to stop just feet from their hotel restaurant. In that moment, Thomas finds himself running away from his frightened family only to come slinking back again once the perceived danger is over. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought the way the drama spread was believable and engaging, and as uncomfortable as it could be, I wanted to be in the room at certain points and join in the debate. I really felt for his family, and the tension was absolutely palpable with an impressive score and brilliant sound design. So yeah, it's a banger.
I also really enjoyed the movie. I found it very interesting that they used very minimal amounts of scoring for this. It was just kind of one repeated motif, which we'll get into a little later.
Yeah.
And I like that the movie itself was more of like a bit of a character study. A little bit of that fight-flight response, psychology. It raises some interesting questions in that matter. So I really enjoyed it for that. I will say I felt cinematography-wise it was a little bit lacking.
Okay.
The lighting was nothing special overall, and some scenes looked a little soft to me, some of the wide shots. But overall, I did like the use of wide angles and a lot of just stationary shots for a long time. It just felt like you were...
That's cinematography, bro.
That part of the cinematography I enjoyed. I'm saying what I did not enjoy was, again, the lighting, and some of the shots were a little soft.
What about you, Shawnee boy?
So, I'm loath to say that I enjoyed the film. However, I like the central premise of the film where there's like one inciting incident that is analyzed thoroughly throughout the film. I thought the film was a little too long for me.
I agree there, yeah. A bit too long.
There are definitely some scenes that I felt like could have been shortened just a little bit. Some wide shots that could have been cut out. To Danny's point, I did think the film was shot a little softly, but actually I made a note that I like the vistas that they filmed overall. I thought the location was gorgeous, and some of the wide shots really worked.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they went to the well, I think maybe one too many times. And I have some misgivings about the ending. It definitely, at least my interpretation is it kind of felt like both sides ism. But overall, I would say it's a very interesting film that I think is just solid overall. So the film is named Force Majeure. Do you guys know what that means? It's an actual term.
Major force.
Well, kind of. There's an unforeseeable circumstance that prevents someone from fulfilling a contract,
Mm.
and then also a irresistible compulsion or greater force.
Mm.
Oftentimes, a force majeure is described as an event, like an act of God. For example, like an avalanche, right? Um,
Hey, that happens here.
exactly. Uh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Insightful. So, considering that there is a force majeure event in the film, you know, a lot of the film is about Ebba, the wife's
Reaction.
her reaction, but more so her contemplate.
Disillusionment.
Yeah, that's a great word. Her disillusionment towards the marriage. So, what'd you guys think about that theme of like disillusionment, of potential annulment of this relationship?
What do you mean? What did I think about it?
Well, I guess twofold. One, do you think that was a central theme of the film? First off, okay, can we agree on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I felt that not only the avalanche itself was a force majeure, but also that psychological response became almost like a force majeure, like turning point in the relationship itself. You know, it kind of represented it at the same time. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's warranted? Because
Her reaction?
yeah,
Or
in
her
part, yes, her
disillusionment?
disillusionment. Because we come to find out both in our viewing of the event and then how they talk about it afterwards that it wasn't really an avalanche, or they would call it an avalanche in the lead up to it, but the actual event, the actual like incident that happened to them wasn't really considered an avalanche, so to speak.
It didn't end up
Because it was
actually.
controlled?
It was a controlled avalanche that went a little too far, and they got caught with some of the avalanche smoke, essentially. So it was a false alarm. You know, they thought it was going to actually, for that one moment, they all thought they were going to die. You know,
Right.
so they were stricken with fear and panic, and yeah. So what are you asking about it?
Normally, when you hear about a force majeure event, it's something that's concrete. But do you think that the response of the characters was warranted, even though it was quote unquote, as you put it, like a false alarm? Like, do you think that that was inciting enough of an incident to have caused basically the rest of the film's like character interactions and disillusionment, so to speak, to occur?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the big thing is that she has her worldview completely shifted. She has this idea of her life as this idyllic unity and this strong, safe family, and that's completely destroyed in that moment when he runs away.
She realizes that she doesn't share the same values as him, you know, like, or that he's actually selfish. You know, she's willing to protect her children in moments like that, and she thought her whole.
I don't know if it's a difference in values. That's a reaction. You may have the value that I protect my family and I.
Well, she thought the entire time that if there was a life-threatening situation, she felt in her heart that her husband would be there to.
Well, so did he though.
Well, so did he.
Yeah, he's not happy about that. It's not a difference in values.
Right.
It's a difference in reality.
Right.
Her reality is broken down.
I guess that's right. That's true. I mean, I guess that's the big question of this film. Is it like, it kind of raises the question, was that really just this uncontrollable inner psychological mechanism that caused the husband to just run off and you know, essentially almost abandon the children?
Well, yes and no. So it was a reaction. It wasn't a decision on his part, but that doesn't mean that you can't feel out your action in the moment and change course, right? Just because you feel that panic and you want to run away doesn't mean you can't override that with a decision. So about it being a real force majeure, I definitely, because if her outlook on her life is the bedrock of her life and that being swept out from under her, then it absolutely can cause a mental breakdown of herself and of her idea of her marriage.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So to answer my own question, I do think the reaction was warranted. You know, even if an incident doesn't end up causing any kind of like bodily harm, anything like that, you know, emotional health is, you know, I think it's on par with physical health. So for this incident to showcase what would happen in this situation, you know, really changes her worldview of this relationship. and of Tomas in particular.
Yeah, and everything they've built together.
Exactly.
The idea of it is different now.
Right, because they are very talkative. They're very talkative's not the right word.
Communicative.
They're very communicative for sure. And actually, I really appreciated this. That almost immediately she went to like talk to him about it.
And then we get to what makes this worse and worse throughout the film. What makes him worse and worse is that it starts off with the event, and then immediately there's denial.
Yeah, his reaction to it was definitely very. I'm loath to say scummy, but I felt kind of like scummed out a little bit by the guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I'd say it came from embarrassment. Like, he knows that what he did was, looks unforgivable,
Sure, absolutely.
Do you think he knows that?
I think he does. Absolutely. Like, for example, when
I think it's a question too, but go ahead.
When the two friends came over and then they all started talking as a group about it, she brought it back up. She went to go show the video. She wanted to show like because Thomas
recorded it.
Thomas recorded the avalanche as it was happening.
Yeah.
So it also captured the moment where he realized there was danger and began to run away. And when the wife mentions that they have the recording and she wants to show it, you see Thomas's mood kind of shift. He gets a little panicky.
Yeah.
And he starts saying, "Oh, well, it was a scary situation." Like, I think he really did know, but he just wants to move past it because he knows what it's gonna possibly cause to the marriage.
But I wonder if he's embarrassed about what he did, or he's embarrassed about being caught, about the facade falling by the wayside. Because it's more than lying. I hate to use the term because it's overused a lot, but he really tries to gaslight his wife.
Oh yeah,
really tries to redefine reality.
Right. I think it's both. I think it's both. Yeah, of course. I think.
I don't know if he ever feels really embarrassed about what happened, or if it's his own ego.
I mean, when there's moments when he's by himself that he seems to be really out of it.
Yeah, but is he just sad for himself, or is he sad for what he did?
I guess that's up to
because he's been caught, basically.
Right. They never say one way or another whether it's one or the other. I'd like to think that there's both involved. I think he does love his family and care for his family.
Sure.
He's before that incident, he's portrayed as
I don't know.
He's seemingly portrayed as a good father.
Yeah, he's playing the part.
So now the whole marriage is a scam. He's playing the part of a good father.
Well, that's why she is having this existential dread, because that's kind of how it's looking. Like, he's been putting on this facade.
Well, that's how it's looking. But let's say let put yourself in Thomas's shoes. But
I'm not Thomas. I think Thomas is a dirtbag.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was me in that situation, I would have been embarrassed for how my family looks at me and for what I did. But I really think Thomas is upset about being caught. He does everything in his power he's doing everything in his power to gaslight his wife and manipulate his children against her as well.
How so?
Yeah, how so? I'm curious. I didn't really get that.
Well, this is jumping later on, but towards the end, he breaks down in the hallway and makes himself out to be the victim. Do you guys remember this part?
Yes.
So, it hurts me too that I'm not the man that I want to be, and I'm not the man that you want me to be. And he starts bawling and yelling right outside their door. I think he intentionally woke up his children and intentionally tried to use them to get his wife to feel sympathy for him. Not even feel, to make her show sympathy for him.
I agree there. I did feel
that was some
like
coercive control.
The crocodile tears a little bit in that moment.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was out of necessity. Like, he felt stuck. Like, there was nothing else he can do. Already this perception of him is coming out. And
well, you said it. It's out of necessity. It's an intentional plan. That's why he feels like kind of a psycho to me.
Psycho, I think, is a strong word.
A narcissist.
But
he's trying to control the situation.
Is,
it doesn't feel genuine to me.
What I feel is that just naturally feeling bad about yourself is not going to be enough to actually get the reaction you need from your family to change your situation. Him, let's say hypothetically, he actually felt bad about what he did. Like, he was like, damn, I'm not the guy that I thought I was when this moment happened. Him just thinking that genuinely is not enough to change his family's thoughts about him. He has to do something, so he has to kind of play it up to make it happen. Regardless of whether he's faking it or not, I felt like it was necessary to fake the over-exaggeration.
Well, if it was real, you wouldn't have to fake it.
The situation, it happened already, and it's so fucking terrible and embarrassing. It's
But
like
he could have ended it the first day just by owning up to what he did and saying, "I'm sorry, I reacted that way. That was crazy. That I wish I could have been the man you want me to be." And I guarantee you, it would have dropped the first day. I don't think her entire worldview would have fallen apart. What makes it fall apart is the fact that he's bold-faced lying to her face and refusing to accept the reality.
True.
Which is that calculating, I'm not going to accept this kind of mentality.
True, but also the way that she starts this argument with him is actually with this random couple. That's the American.
Well, she needs to find a way to bring it up because he won't.
Yeah, but the way she brings it up at first is kind of like not in a good spot. It was just kind of like.
But she doesn't have a choice because it's not on her to call him out. He's the one who should have manned up and brought it up.
True.
Well, also remember, she did bring it up to him. I alluded to this earlier. She did stop him when they got back to the room.
Oh, that's right.
And let the kids in. Their kids were kind of like mad about being left in. But she did confront him about it.
I forgot about that.
Actually. So she gave him a chance to like talk about it, and he pretty much brushed it off.
Right.
And then, it was on her mind the whole time, and eventually, whether it was right to do so or not, she felt the need to like have to bring it up, right? Because maybe she thought, like my understanding is she thought, okay, maybe he doesn't see it as a big deal, so I'm gonna kind of laugh it off. Because like one of the things about her, she chuckles a lot in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like a nervous tick or whatever. But she's laughing it off, so she brings it up. I think in part to try to laugh it off, one, but then two to kind of confront him about it, right? Because she felt like, okay, she doesn't really have a choice. He's not listening to me. He's going out of the realm that he normally has been. Because she makes a point to say, this is not us. So she's giving him chances, and he definitely doesn't rise to the occasion here. I kind of read his characterization a bit as he feels a bit emasculated. That dinner you guys were just talking about, I think really emasculated him. Like he calls that dinner terrible. Yeah. Like all things considered, like it's awkward. I wouldn't call it maybe terrible, but because he was called out, right, and he was kind of laughed at, so to speak, in public, mind you.
Yeah. You're talking about the dinner with the American couple?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He got so scared that he ran away from the table.
What? No, I did not. No.
Come on.
No. I did
He ran
not.
away from the table.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Oh, okay. No, I did not.
När lavinen kom så sprang du bort från bordet.
Nej, det gjorde väl verkligen inte.
Jo. Thomas says that you cannot run in ski boots. It's ridiculous. You cannot run in ski boots?
Not run, you can't.
And because he's laughed at and, made fun of, so to speak, even though I don't think he really was.
Well, she says it like anecdotally when she says it. Like
she's trying to make it easier for him.
Yeah,
to make it a light thing.
She's saying it like second-handedly, offhandedly.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, he kind of ran too. It's like, haha, it happens.
She's giving him opportunities to own up to it without having it be an accusation.
Right, exactly. But then it comes to a point where he's just basically saying, no, this is your perception of reality. Right?
Yeah.
Not owning up to the fact that, not even owning up to the simple fact that like he just wasn't there at the time that it hit. Right? Like he can't even accept that. Right? So I think there's something maybe a bit off with the guy. It's interesting because after that point, then everything just starts to spiral for him.
Right.
And he really starts to lash out. So I don't know if it's a case of this incident brought that out of him, or if those were qualities that he always had, but were good about maybe hiding or good about maybe stamping down, so to speak, especially once he became a father. We, real quick, one thing that we do see at the end of the film is that, he accepts a cigarette from a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And his kid is like, wait, you smoke? Right? And the kid was totally like put off by that because it was like, I didn't know you smoked. He's like, yeah, I do. So I think that's the director's way of saying, hey, there's some things we don't know about this guy.
And him finally starting to reveal himself, starts to drop the facade.
Exactly, yeah. So I think there's a bit of a facade going on with him.
I will say that maybe, I didn't really see it like that, honestly. I didn't think of it as a facade personally. And when you were talking about the definition of force majeure, it being an irresistible compulsion to a greater force.
Or a greater force.
irresistible compulsion or greater force. I thought of that also at the emotional level. Like,
For sure.
that response that he had to that was something that was just, it kind of raised the question in me of like, is that really a thing? Can that override a person? A moment of immense danger, right? Which
that's
is what
the
which is what the friend tries to explain too. He tries to talk about
very good
that.
friend for sure.
Yeah, that was a great job, by the way.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, really good writing.
I had some misgivings about that friend, but anyways, we'll
Okay.
go.
But like, I started thinking about it in my own life. Like, what if I was in that situation? I want to say that I'll grab my kids and I'll fucking die for them, you know?
But here's what I'm wondering: is that even the question though? Again, I really don't think it would have blown up, and the whole movie would have been this awkward tension fest if he had owned up to it right away.
Well,
so it
because-
wasn't the running away; it was his reaction to getting caught.
For me, it more feels like he was shocked by the moment because he realized he did something he never thought he would do in his life, and he was he felt emasculated by it. He felt embarrassed by it, and he just wanted it to go away. You know, it's like, I can't believe this is me. I don't want it to be me. I want to let it go. And then the wife is just like, you know, no, this is you. This is you.
But then you're saying
you.
he's dumb because the easiest way to have made it go away would have been to own up to it, talk about it, let it be in the past.
To your point, though, Alejandro, I think that is a question of the film, because they go back to it multiple times about like, how would you react in a situation like that? No, if it was just the one time in the beginning, I would agree with you that that's not really the point. But the fact that they do it like twice.
Oh, I'm not
at
saying
the
it's
end-
irrelevant. Yeah, no, definitely that's an important question.
Yeah. Well, I think you had mentioned that that's not really the question the film's trying to ask, and I think it is.
Well, I think it's asking multiple questions.
Multiple, for sure.
But I think that's like 1A, 1B. You know,
That's a big, but I think that's the big question. That's that turning point right there. You know, that action, did he do it purposely? Was he just being selfish? Was it an uncontrollable internal psychological mechanism? You know, I think that's really the big question of this movie.
Going back to the way Ebba broaches the subject, she first has, like we mentioned, she first has the conversation with these American tourists they met, and then she broaches the subject with Thomas's old friend Mats and his girlfriend Fanny. They invite them back to their room. They explain the situation, and you had said you really liked the writing there. So did I.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was an example of listening that I hadn't really seen done so well in a movie.
Absolutely.
Like, they hear both people out, no judgment, and
They take a moment to process it and
give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And then when the proof finally does come out, when they see the footage that Thomas had taken,
they don't take sides per se.
well, Mats gives him the most generous, optimistic view that he possibly can.
he definitely takes Tomas's side. I
Well,
totally
no,
read that
he
as
takes
that.
the side of peace. And
I don't think he's taking sides because
Yeah.
the question was, did he do it or not? That was the
Yeah.
question.
right.
Not what were his reasons.
Yeah, like once they see the video, they are all in agreement. Like, okay, you did do this.
Mhm.
You did do this. But then Mats is like trying to figure out reasoning as to maybe non-selfish reasons of
Yeah.
why you would do it.
But he says those same points or similar points before they even see the video. Like, Mats goes out of his way to try to explain what Tomas did before they even saw the video.
I think because he's
though.
trying not to make anybody the bad guy.
Yeah.
To me, that was very admirable.
Right. Like, why would you
Yes
want
and
to be
no,
like,
it's loyal, sure, but
it's for the sake of, you know,
So for the sake of unity, he doesn't
unity,
want
right?
strife.
He wants the relationship to be healthy.
Right.
It wouldn't be in anyone's best interest if you just started kind of pointing fingers to Tomas and saying, "Oh, well, you're just an asshole," and actually, you know, you just don't care about your family, you know. So I feel that Mats was really trying to stay in the middle. Obviously, he's friends with Tomas, right? So, but it's in both people's interest to keep this relationship together and with the family.
And get him to own up to what he did without demasculating him. That's what everybody's trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah, he's trying to get him to own up, but also by saying, "Look, maybe you did it, but
Yeah, maybe I would have acted the same way.
maybe I would have acted the same way, and maybe it was this internal thing that happens when extreme dangerous situations happen. It's just human nature."
I think one excuse he gave was that, oh, maybe you ran away so that you wouldn't get buried, so you can come back and save your family. Because you can't do anything if you're buried with them.
That one was definitely a stretch.
Yeah,
And
even Thomas is like,
yeah, Thomas is like, no,
that wasn't me.
no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I saw it a little differently, but I see your guys' point.
So, okay, so you saw it as he was taking sides.
Absolutely, because like almost immediately after Ebba finishes her point, which I do appreciate the film that they didn't make it so that people started interrupting her. She got her point across. You know, it took her time. She was very cogent, very well spoken. So I do appreciate that. But almost immediately after, when Tomas isn't speaking, like he just jumps right into it. Excuse me, Matt jumps right into like. It felt like more defending him than it was trying to bring unity. Like I understand that maybe there was a bit of unity there because later on,
fair enough,
they say, oh, there's they need to go to therapy, right. So like I think ultimately he believes that they need to not be apart here. They need to like really consolidate and come together.
Of course.
I just think the way he handled it was a bit more forcefully on Tomas's side, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
And it might have been required for the unity.
Exactly. Because the alternative there was to just kind of be an instigator, I guess, and just saying, well, he
was already under the spotlight, so it would have felt like jumping on him.
Exactly. And it's not like Mats was lying about anything. He wasn't. No. He wasn't helping.
He was being generous. We'll say that.
Right.
Very generous.
Very generous.
Yeah.
He wasn't helping Tomas like gaslighter.
No,
or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, he was going with the truth and with what he heard.
Which good for him,
just
right?
Give a valid
Even though
argument.
he wants to be a friend, he's not helping him with that BS.
Exactly.
Yeah, lesser films definitely would have been like, oh, well, they would have started questioning Ebba, which I very much appreciate of this film, that they took her at face value.
Really good listening.
Yeah.
So very good examples of listening in this film. I mean, I don't want to go into it too much, but I think the best example of her of listening was from her towards the beginning. Where she really gives him time. I mean, like every conversation she has with Tomas is she hears him out. Then she's like, well, I don't agree with this for these reasons. She's very rational about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe almost a little too rational at certain points, but that kind of gets offset with like her drinking a bit. But even with the video, that's a very rational thing to do. Is like, I have incontrovertible proof.
Let's stop this argument. We got the footage.
Yeah. So it's like, I have the proof right here. Let me show you. I want you all to be witness to this.
So here's part of the reason I don't like Thomas. Like we keep bringing up, he has opportunity after opportunity to own up to his actions and drop all the tension and the heartache. During their dinner party, they get interrupted by Tomas and Ebba's son. He takes the opportunity to slink away and hide in his kid's room as they continue the conversation.
Listening to it, yep.
And he's like listening through the door.
He pretends like he's going to help the child with something. Like after bringing back the drone, because drone, the kid like flies a drone into the room and interrupts them.
Yeah.
It's a little movie.
He uses that moment to like, as Saved by the Bell. He grabs the drone, goes back, and instead.
He's hiding in his kid's bed.
You can clearly see the kid doesn't need him for anything. The kid's just like minding his own business, playing on his tablet. And he's just like kind of laying next to him, overhearing the conversation, seeing what he can use. So while he's listening, they're actually talking about the whole shock to the system when there's a dangerous situation. And he overhears that. The scene shows it. And then when he comes back, that's actually the first thing he starts talking about.
Yeah, he strategically chooses his time to get back out there.
Exactly.
So it's very hard to feel bad for Thomas.
But I still do. But I feel that he feels embarrassed. But the part you disagree is that I think he also feels genuinely sad about it, about the person that he now learned that he really is in those situations.
Yeah, I definitely disagree there.
I disagree there a little bit too, actually, because when he's having his like meltdown, which by the way, like he acts like a total baby there. Like for sure, like he's crying. He's practically
howling.
Like, I'm talking about when he's inside the room and he's practically like kicking his feet like on the ground, right? And he's wailing. But right before that point, when he's in the lobby, or right outside the door rather, he starts describing the person that he is. Which, by the way, he describes it in third person. He never owns up to saying like, only towards the end of that conversation does he say, I am that man. But the whole time he's saying like, that man does it. You know, that man has these qualities.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I noticed he said was, you know, I've cheated, which he describes as like cheating with his kids in their games. But he also said, I could have mistaken this, but I thought he said, I am unfaithful.
He did, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he did.
Which doesn't engender me to him. Definitely not.
No, and it's funny because at that point, that's almost less important than everything else that's going on. It gets dropped really quickly.
It's said offhandedly,
Yeah.
which I, you know, if I was her, I would have been like, wait, what? Unless maybe she knew about it and, you know, forgave him or
Got
whatever.
the impression that she knew, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Either she knew or it was already like, I'm so over you already, then who cares?
That could be it too, yeah, for sure.
I interpret it as old news. Like, yeah, it was an issue they had in the past that's now been like almost forgotten
Could
and
be.
moved on from. But he feels like in comparison, this new situation is much worse. It's even more irredeemable.
Yeah, so for me, it's just the way that he acts. He's never taking responsibility for it. You know, Danny talks about earlier, he sees himself as the victim. Like at this point when his wife has been aggrieved, he sees himself as the victim.
Yeah,
He never says sorry, by the way.
never.
Never. Yeah.
Never. He
Never admits to the act. Kind of just accepts that it happened, but never
Yeah.
says, I did this.
He says,
It's
this
true.
this man that I have become did it. Which is about the worst way that you can ever admit
Psycho.
to like
I mean,
any kind
yeah.
of wrongdoing.
That is some true self-denial for sure. He's lying to himself ultimately. I mean, and his family.
And again, that scene that we were talking about, I definitely, like we said before, I definitely think he's intentionally trying to grab his children's attention and wake them up.
Yeah, I guess I can see that now. I took that as just like he is such. I hate to be so critical of him, but it's like he's a man child at that point. He's like a man baby because he's having a temper tantrum there, basically.
I see it more sinister than that. I see it as
Maybe.
let's paint the scene for the listeners who haven't seen it. He is howling outside their hotel room as we mentioned, and then they come inside and he's screaming, waking up his children, and they come out. They see him sobbing, belly down on the floor like a child, practically kicking his feet. And so of course their natural inclination is to walk up and try and comfort him. And Ebba, who's furious at him for this, is standing back with her arms folded, and then they call her over. You know, mom, come comfort him. He's distressed, whatever. So to me, that looked all planned as a way to force her to be complicit in this relationship, force her to comfort him.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was looking at her the whole time that was
Same.
happening, and my first thought was earlier. Tomas and Mats are out skiing by themselves, and she's in bed. The kids don't comfort her. They see that she's clearly sad, which, by the way, we don't actually see her. You know, I do appreciate a lot of the shots in the film are kind of like either wide shots or we don't see the characters. We have to hear them to understand how they're feeling, or like we see, you know, the couple embrace each other, but like through a reflection, right? So there's some things I appreciate there, but we don't actually see her as she's like laying in bed, you know, clearly depressed, clearly sad about what's going on, you know, probably a bit hungover from the previous night. I think this is the morning after the big confrontation with the group. Kids don't console her. They're like, we want food. We want chocolate.
Well, they seem pretty disillusioned at this point.
Well, definitely. But the reason why I bring this up is because they see a same level of sadness, quote unquote, but more exposed is not the right word, more extravagant, you know, like more,
Yeah, practically asking for help or begging for help.
right. And then they immediately go to him and, you know, comfort him, while she's like, at least for me, if I were her, I would have thought, man, I was like laying in bed, you told me I smell like alcohol, which was a depressing line to hear. Her kids said that, and
it's because she remained composed.
I don't read too much into that in terms of her being a character flaw with her and her kids.
Because the
No,
kids,
I'm not saying it's a character flaw. I'm saying if I were her, I would have thought, man, I really wish I could have gotten some comfort myself. Because hold on, because she never gets comforted at any point in this film. At best, people are like,
by the
"We believe
friends.
you." Well, at best they're like, we believe
The
you.
friends comfort her, like the Maddie.
Yeah, they're good friends to her.
Maddie
Maddie's
goes to
Fanny.
her and sits next to her, starts like puts her arm around her. She is getting comforted at that level.
A
The
little
kids,
bit, but not her most important relationship though.
the kids are too young. They're very unaware.
they're just thinking about
They
themselves.
had to see
Sure.
the father like wailing and on the ground to be able to react. They're not going to react to subtle facial features and body language.
No, I know, but regardless of that,
I see what you're saying.
like you can see someone getting comforted for something that you feel as well, but you don't get it, so you're like, oh man, I kind of wish I could have.
You put yourself in her shoes, and you're like, I wish I had that comfort.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Because
got
I think that would have alleviated some of the issue. Because then again, as you guys said, she was very composed in that moment, but also furious, right? I think in part because the way he's acting, the way he's kind of manipulated the family to react that way.
She has to be the adult there.
Yeah, exactly. She has to be the adult. Everyone else is being a child right now.
Yeah.
For good and bad, right? And that is frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I see. So you feel for her on that level.
Yes, because
I'm
it's a
with you.
very frustrating experience to have to go through that, because she's like, I am the aggrieved party here, and yet somehow I'm the one that has to keep everyone together.
And
like
that's
no
why-
one's really comforting me.
And that's why I'm pissed off for her in that
Yes.
scene where Thomas breaks down. She's like, nah, once again, I have to be there for him and them.
Yeah.
I have to go in there and hug him when all I want to do is be away from this.
And
man
I'm the
right
one
now.
who's been bereaved.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that scene was so beautifully shot and well executed, but so frustrating at the same time. I
was.
really fell for her.
By the way, I really feel bad for Matt's after that dinner party, because he did nothing wrong. He was just being a good friend, and then all of a sudden, it's all being thrown at him too.
Suddenly he's being emasculated for no reason.
But that was very realistic, because of course they would have that argument after.
Yeah,
of course,
definitely.
that question is going to be in the air.
But what was not, well, I guess realistic, but just an asshole move, in my opinion, was just Maddie automatically assuming that Matt's wouldn't do it. Oh, you're just like your friend, like
Fanny.
I'm sorry, did I say
You
Maddie?
said Maddie.
My bad. Yeah, Fanny. Fanny said to Matt's like, yeah, I think you would do the same. You would run too. And I was like,
I don't hold it against her. That's her view. That's her view.
I guess
She's also 20 years old, as they
Yeah.
point out.
True.
So she's like emotionally not developed quite yet.
I agree. I gave her a pass. I think she's like, yeah, you boomers all act the same.
I give her a pass, kind of, but I mean, she's old enough to know what she's doing. Like, she's a bit of a poopster.
Oh yeah, she made that statement. Like everyone,
It's your generation.
everyone in that generation would do the same thing.
And then she mentions some guy who's like 1 year older than him, somehow being more brave, and that I felt was like a bit of a needle.
No,
for
1
her.
year older than her, so he's young.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry. Well, 1 year older than her, because the guy Philip was like 21, she's 20.
Right.
I don't know why she did that. That was so like just unnecessary.
I
of a
think you hit home.
conversation.
It was just immature.
It's
Immature,
absolutely immature.
And then he couldn't get it out of his head.
But I thought he handled himself very well.
he
Like
did,
he
for
never
sure.
he never blew up. He's just arguing it to the ground. Like, listen, this isn't cool.
For hours in the night, by the way, he was arguing.
I think I would do the same thing. I
Yeah,
couldn't have
me
my
too.
partner think of me that way.
Yeah, that's fair.
I
I
agree.
would probably do the same. Yeah.
But honestly, in the back of my head, I would still wonder, like, would I though? Like, again, just this movie brought up that question in my head. Like, is it uncontrollable?
Right.
Is
And
it-
you can't know until it happens.
You can't know. Yeah. Again, I'd like to think that I would risk my life for everyone, but when the moment comes, would any of us?
So you just talk about like, what would you do in that situation?
Mm-hmm.
At first, I didn't think the film's question, going back to our earlier conversation, was about what would you actually do. I felt like it was more about like the event happened and it's the emotional fallout from that. But then my viewpoint of the film changed the last like 20 minutes, where after this blow up happens, they go skiing the next day in like the worst weather possible to do that. And they all decide to go anyways. They brave on and they go skiing. Tomas has to lead the way with the kids in the middle and then Ebba in the back. They keep skiing until a point where she gets lost. He eventually has to like go out and save her because, she's crying for help.
Yeah, they're at the bottom of the hill. They've lost her in the blizzard, and he has to leave his kids there, go back up to try and find her.
Which, by the way, I was like, oh my God, would you leave your kids there? But I guess that's maybe a separate
That's true.
conversation.
That was
I
I
didn't, think
questionable.
I didn't think there was another choice.
true.
You can't bring
You
him
can't
up.
bring him up.
So that happens, and we'll get back to that scene. But basically, what happens is Tomas finds her and carries her very heroically back to the kids. Then they're on the bus leaving the ski resort. And then there's another kind of seemingly another force majeure event with the bus, you know, them going down. It's less of like a greater force that's occurring, but just more like an event that could really damage their lives or, you know, end their lives.
Yeah.
With the bus driver being incompetent and unable to like get down the switchback mountain, you know, carefully enough, where Ebba starts freaking out. And to the point where she's like calling out the bus driver saying, hey, be more careful. He gets to a corner and he kind of bumps into like the railing. And at that point she freaks out and she gets out of the bus, but leaves the kids and Tomas there and everybody else. So that's her like parallel to what Tomas did earlier in the film with the avalanche.
Right.
Right.
And she has said several times, I would not have been able to do that. I would not have been able to leave.
Which is conflicting for me because I think I understand what they're trying to say, which is like, yes, this kind of response can happen to anyone despite their bravado saying to the contrary.
Right.
With that said, the film didn't really feel like that was the point, and it felt kind of like a double side, like not double sides, kind of like a both sidesism where it's like we see Ebba's points throughout the film and we, you know, feel for her and, you know, she's in the right. But then the way that they start characterizing Tomas at the end, it's almost as if, okay, he's kind of been redeemed a little bit. He's starting to showcase his bravado, his bravery. And now the tables have flipped towards her, where now she's acting in a similar fashion to how Tomas was, which I didn't think the film was trying to go for, really. And I don't know how to feel about that.
I feel pretty good about it, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
Because at the same time they're showing her failure, they're showing Matt's step up, take control of the situation, not panic, and safely lead everybody off the bus. And he also had said, I would react heroically in that situation. He had also stood up for himself. So I think it's less about showing a definitive, even comparison, and it's more about you, like we had said before, you simply just don't know how you're going to react in that situation. Not so much giving her leeway.
Well, I don't know if it's giving her leeway so much as it's showcasing that she is similar to Tomas in that one specific regard.
Yeah,
she did the same thing that she was chiding him for earlier in the film.
Yeah, I feel
that's what it is. Yeah.
I agree with you, Sean, that I feel like it did kind of showcase that this kind of uncontrollable reaction could happen to anybody at any time, depending on the situation, depending on the person. There's a wide variety of situation to personality events, and it can happen. In this case, it happened to Tomas from the avalanche, and it happened for Ebba for the bus moment. Yeah. But the difference being that the way that Tomas handled the avalanche situation is really what made him more unlikable than the avalanche. Than his reaction to the avalanche itself, right?
Yeah.
And also Tomas stayed with the kids in the bus. Like he was the one who was calm and composed. Yeah. You know, with the kids. Like he was worried about his wife, but he was also like, I'm going to stay here for a moment.
Right.
Which I don't know if that makes the film better, not to be too reductive, I guess, but I feel like that's not really the point the film was trying to get across throughout. And it felt a little bit shoehorned to have that bus scene in. I felt like maybe the film would have been a little stronger if it was left a bit more ambiguous. I felt like in terms of how they would react. Because again, the reaction is not really the point, I don't think. It's more like how you own up to it and and like the emotional fallout from there. So to have a parallel to that at the end of the film, I don't know that it necessarily works.
It didn't bother me because it felt like a bit of a red herring, because it's not so much. It's not nearly as much of a force majeure. I mean, sure. They weren't in as much danger as I think she felt, so she panicked in that moment. But it didn't seem like an equivalent event.
I mean, yeah, the danger was kind of over. Like the bus driver stopped already, so it was like doesn't really matter if she walks out first and the kids walk out behind her. It's not like the bus is about to fall off a cliff and she just goes running out the door, you know?
But anyway, yeah, I think the message is a bit ambiguous. But going back a little bit towards when they're in the blizzard, I have absolutely no doubt that Ebba faked her event.
I think so too.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think from the very beginning, Thomas pretty much planned to take them out into this blizzard because he just wanted an opportunity to redeem himself.
Right, he was always almost hoping for an accident. He's even like encouraging.
I didn't even think of that.
He's encouraging. Oh, it's safe, no problem. Like, why are you taking this risk?
Why would you go up a mountain during like a blizzard with your family? There's no other reason. Like that's not a
Which goes towards my view of him. Yeah, he's a manipulative bastard.
That's not a good day to ski. I mean, at all.
I don't know. I guess I took that more as like he's not really thinking. Like he's just so in his head about himself right now that he wasn't even like. He just seemed like very emotionally drained, so to speak. They all did really. So I just took that as less calculated. But I can see to your guys' point that maybe it was calculated. It was definitely calculated on Ebba's part because immediately after she is brought back to the kids, you know, he's like, "Do you need help?" Nope. She gets up, brushes herself off, and just walks.
Exactly.
She doesn't even try and hide the fact that she was faking it. It was almost just like, here's that thing you need. You need to feel like a man. Here it is. And he just ignores the obvious that she's faking it.
Yeah. So why do you think she did it? Because she wanted him to regain a little bit of his mojo, so to speak, like get a little bit of his like self-worth back, or do you think there's another reason?
I think it was more for the children. I think she wanted, because I think the kids also saw during the avalanche scene that he ran off and they reacted to that.
Oh, they 100% saw it. They,
really negatively.
They couldn't control their children anymore after that. After that event, they had lost authority.
Exactly. So I felt like it was kind of to get that power dynamic back from the from the kids.
Yeah, I think she was exhausted of the fight.
And that too.
That for sure.
Yeah. There's even there's a little part where they're going up the ski lift and the ski lift kind of shakes a little bit, and you could see Tomas like overreacting to the shake and like grabbing like his daughter's leg, like almost like, "I got you, don't worry, you're safe, safe with me, trust me," kind of thing. Like he's like desperately trying to just show like, okay, that was a one-time deal.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not that guy.
And I was just like, I'm not gonna win this. Here you go. Here, big man.
Do you think she did it as a little bit of a diluted sense for herself to kind of put in her mind like, hey, maybe he does have the capacity to do this?
The look on her face said no.
Yeah, maybe.
She wasn't buying into it. She was just cold, stone face and walked up the hill. This is for you.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I almost feel like they both planned to do it.
No, I don't think so.
Because his reaction wasn't even that like, I don't know. He didn't even seem that worried going up when he was calling to her.
Well, what's to be so worried about? That's the thing. It's just a scary moment, but there really wasn't too much to worry about.
Okay, maybe I'm reading too much.
It was like a straight line down the hill. Like what could her accident have been? Literally, the only thing that could have happened is she slipped and hurt her ankle, and obviously that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty safe event.
It was safe. Yeah.
It was just scary because of the blizzard.
Right. So, just talking about perception.
Yeah.
Do you think Matt's at the end took control of the situation with the bus based off of instinct, or do you think it had more to do with the prior conversation in his head and how he characterized himself and how he would react in that situation, and was kind of fulfilling that? Like, do you think he was a little more level-headed and, you know, understood the situation and it was going on, and understood that he characterized himself to Fanny in this very bravado way, so he knew what he had to do at that point to kind of, I guess, quote unquote, like save face?
He never strikes me as that calculating of a guy. He seems pretty genuine to me, and there was nothing on his face that gave it away. I feel like if it was planned, he didn't strike me as an actor. It would have shown on his face. It seemed like a genuine reaction. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, I think it was genuine. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't also be in his mind a little bit, but it's not like he planned the bus to...
I'm sure it's in the back of his mind. Yeah.
He didn't plan for the bus driver to be an idiot. You know what I mean?
No, but Sean's saying, was this in his mind an opportunity to show her, okay, no, I am a manly man?
Oh.
Maybe he didn't do it maliciously, but to Danny's point, I think, you know, it was in the back of his head, and I think it did influence him a bit more than maybe.
Sometimes you can't
really
control when there's like selfish reasons as well for
Sure.
doing something. You know, like I think he was doing it to help
Sure.
ultimately, but there's also selfish reasons. It's like it's like that philosophical question of like reasons to save some. Oh, because if you didn't, you'd feel bad about it because you got this kid killed. You didn't save him from the train tracks. But no, I did it to help the kid. You know, it's like it's something it's difficult to quantify.
If it was in the back of his head, in my opinion, what was in the back of his head was his conversation about how people react when panicked. He saw the start of something that could be potentially dangerous, maybe quicker because they had just had that conversation.
Perhaps.
If anything, that's what I see is in the back of his head.
Yeah, no, definitely.
To bring something light up, one of my favorite moments was when Thomas and Matt are chilling at the bar after they go skiing by themselves. And there's this club music playing, and they're all relaxed and having a good time. And this girl walks up. She goes, "So my friend pointed at you, and she says you're the cutest guy here.
The most handsome man here.
You're the most handsome man here. I just had to tell you. And, then they have some friendly conversation. She walks up. I thought they were being, really good there. They're both in committed relationships. They're just like enjoying the ego boost. And then after a couple of moments, as they're basking in their glory, she comes back.
She meant someone else, my friend. She didn't mean you. I'm sorry. Listen, it was my fault. I'm really sorry for this. I was actually pointing at someone else. So let's go and take it easy. But it just...
And you see Matt's is almost like, what's the word? He can't believe what he's hearing. Like, he's so offended.
He's getting like apoplectic, and I'm getting apoplectic for both of them. Really, that was not a fun moment for me. I was like,
such a drain.
Why would you tell somebody that?
Yeah, even if it was a mistake, let them have it.
Yeah, just
let them have it.
Leave it be. Don't bother. Just move on to the next guy. Right? Like, why did you have to come back and say, no, my friend doesn't think you're the most handsome man here. That was my mistake. I'm sorry.
It goes back to the constant upping of tension and misery this movie has. Like, they can't have a moment. They just keep getting needled and needled and needled. His masculinity keeps getting dropped and dropped and dropped in every event. Usually it's his fault. But in this case, it was just the universe shitting on him.
Yeah, because he's there. He's got his aviators on. He's looking pretty cool.
Yeah.
Actually, like, they both are. And then for that to happen, it's just, like, so deflating. And, like, I was on their side. I was like, why would you ever tell me this? Like, just leave me alone.
And before we get past it, I do want to talk about, you guys mentioned there's not much score, but I really liked all the uses of the soundtrack.
It was pretty much the repeating of Vivaldi's...
I was going to ask you what that was.
It's the Four Seasons by Vivaldi. And ironically, it's summer. They're playing the summer theme, which I thought was very interesting.
It was very cool. I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I loved... So what sets off the artificial avalanches is these explosions on these towers that they have placed all around the resort. And then once they have this event in the beginning where, you have the fake avalanche scare, throughout the entire movie, you hear this constant popping in the background. The explosions they keep going off. And to me, that's just more of that needling. It doesn't allow anybody to relax. They're constantly reminded about what happened. Nobody can forget.
Yeah, they're on guard. Like, even Ebba says, like, I hate that noise.
Yeah. Worst vacation ever.
They cannot forget for 5 minutes about what happened.
Yep.
Talking about the sound direction, if you don't mind.
I wanted to just say a fun fact about that.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Talking about the score real quick. A little did you know about it.
Danny, did you knows?
Is that that repeated score was actually taken from a YouTube clip, funnily enough, of a 12-year-old playing Vivaldi's Summer on an accordion.
That's funny.
That's cool.
So that's and talking about YouTube, that was also a big inspiration for this film.
What, a short?
It was just a video of an avalanche, actually. Ruben Östlund, the director, he got a lot of inspiration for several of the scenes from real footage of a family taking a video of the avalanche, and then
he's just asking himself the question.
Then the idea came, to his head, like,
what would I do?
Yeah, what would I do? Exactly.
That's awesome.
And that's where the movie came.
I was really impressed with. It was probably a pretty low budget movie, but I thought the sound design really elevated it and
yeah.
it made it not feel low budget.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of that? The fact that it really didn't use much score at all. Like, you maybe hear that motif 5 times throughout the 2 hours that you're listening to it.
Yeah, I had no problem with it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it too. There was only one instance of an actual song in the movie other than Vivaldi's what's it called, Four Seasons?
The Four Seasons, yeah.
The song Freedom. I don't know if that's the name of the song, but like the chorus is something about freedom at the bar scene that Alejandro was talking about earlier. And it's supposed to be like this very uplifting song, like, oh, we're finally free.
The one with the ladies. The ladies that are...
Yeah. But then it's like played against type because it's anything but freedom for them, right?
On top of that, as they're getting their ego deflated, she's telling them about, oh, my friend pointed to the wrong person. And the lyrics are saying, getting dragged down to the ground, something like that. So it's perfectly timed.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's 2 other songs in this movie. There's like... Tomas like ends up wandering into like some kind of party, some keg party or something.
Oh yeah,
what he's trying. Any songs though? It was like all screaming.
There was beats.
Vivaldi was playing, and they were just.
Oh,
screaming.
was it Vivaldi?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why in my head I thought it was just like.
Let's describe that scene. He gets locked out of his hotel room, which I actually think she was in there the whole time and locked him out on purpose.
Oh yeah, so. For sure.
And so he goes out, and almost it feels like he's trying to once again gain his masculinity back, reestablish his image, and he goes clubbing with all these young guys. They're getting naked and screaming, and it's going crazy.
Up. Yeah. They're like screaming 1 second, and then just vomit comes out the other second.
Yeah.
Like,
so he's pretty desperate to reestablish himself.
What do you think? Do you think he wandered in there on purpose?
I feel like he kind of got dragged in there a little bit.
He got dragged in because like that crowd was chasing him.
The crowd, like, yeah. That was a weird scene.
But he joined them. Like, he was looking for something.
He went with it for sure. I wanted to jump to another point.
Sure.
Going back to that crucial, avalanche scene from a technical standpoint, what did you guys think? Was that an actual controlled avalanche that they just filmed, or
CGI.
What's going on there?
CGI, baby.
Oh, I thought it was just composite.
Yeah.
Filmed avalanche, filmed then, stitch it together. It didn't look especially impressive to me, but it got it across.
Yeah, it looked good to me.
CGI.
Shut your.
Well, no. Hold on. You didn't let me finish. It wasn't the avalanche though. CGI. The people were CGI.
Oh, I see.
It was like the composite thing you just mentioned, but they CGI'd all the people in, so they had a real empty bar or resort.
Sounds difficult.
Real avalanche, and then they just slowly CGI'd everybody in and their reactions. They got everybody on a green screen. They had them film all the reactions.
Pretty good on their budget.
And then they CGI'd them out. They put them in, and then bam,
they face captured them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
But I thought the scene was. I thought the scene was effective enough.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, going back to our points earlier about like just some of the shots. I agree with Danny that some of the shots were filmed, I think, a little too softly. Mm-hmm. There were a couple scenes that were maybe a little hard to like see what was going on.
Oh, you guys say softly. I'm not sure what you mean. Do you think the resolution was low or was out of focus?
Out of focus.
Yeah. It was a little,
there were certain wide shots that were out of focus for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little difficult to tell like what was going on.
At first I thought it was the streaming, but it was just inconsistent. Like certain scenes were fine, other scenes were a little on the blurry side.
Gotcha.
Like the drone shot, for example, when it was at night, like that was a little hard to tell like what was going on.
Yeah,
maybe on purpose. I don't know.
Some of the early shots when they first get to the resort and they're off skiing and there's like a lot of wide shots showing the vistas. The main characters were pretty soft. That was when I first noticed it, and I was kind of like, huh.
I keep coming back to this for every film that's about 2 hours long, and I have to ask. Do you guys think this film was too long? Were there any scenes that you felt like didn't need to be there or maybe could have been shortened?
I had no problem with the runtime. What about you, Dano?
I think it could have been tightened a little bit. There were some scenes that lingered a little bit too long between reactions to each other. Sometimes it would last a little too long, in my opinion.
But I think long shots are intentional when you're trying to build tension. So I get what you guys are saying, but I also think I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was intentional.
Yeah, I do think it was intentional.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
For sure. I like it overall, but even with that in mind, I still felt like it could have just been tightened. The pacing could have just been a little bit better. Not by a long shot, but I mean, by a lot, but, just a little bit. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, there were like a few of these really abrupt cuts out of nowhere.
Yeah, there were some moments I was like, wait, what? And then I actually rewound back. I was like, did like the stream skip for a moment? It's like, oh no, that's just it. You guys want to give your final thoughts and scores?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I think it's your turn to start first, Sean.
Sure. I give it an 8 out of 10. Overall, it was a very uncomfortable film to watch, but it was very engaging throughout. The performances, which we didn't really even talk about, but I thought they were phenomenal. And the characters were deeply intricate and flawed. I did have some misgivings about the ending, as I said before, and I felt like maybe the film was just a bit too long in the tooth. And with the overall theme of it being kind of like a both sidesism, I thought didn't really gel well with like the rest of the themes of the film. But those are just some little misgivings. I think overall this film is like very triumphant in terms of showcasing like a real relationship and how it could, be a bit disillusioned by this kind of like force majeure event, or even just like an event that's not as catastrophic as it was made out to be. So I think overall, it was a very well-crafted, well-paced film. So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Very cool. I'm going 8.5 out of 10.
Nice.
An awesome character drama you're going to want to watch with someone else, because you will want to sit down and discuss it with somebody. So be sure to do that. What about you, Dano?
I give it a 7 out of 10. Overall, I really enjoyed the film. It was a great character study, and it really raised some very interesting questions, psychological questions. And I think again, some of the cinematography I did not enjoy. Some interesting cut choices and camera choices, and the pacing could have been tightened up, in my opinion. And the ending could have been maybe a little bit better. I didn't really like how it ended, but yeah, overall good. All right, and next week, join us for LA Confidential 1997. As corruption grows in 1950s Los Angeles, 3 policemen, one straight-laced, one brutal, and one sleazy, investigate a series of murders with their own brand of justice. You can find it on Starz, Apple TV, Vudu, and Blu-ray. Sean, where can they find us?
You can find us on your favorite podcast app. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a review, maybe a 5-star rating. It really goes a long way towards helping build the podcast. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit the little notify bell so you're made aware when new episodes drop every week. We really appreciate it. And if you guys have any comments you want to leave about your opinions on the film or what you thought of today's film, do let us know. And with that, thank you very much for listening. We will bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Long live the new Flash.
Force Majeure.